Have you ever changed your priority 3 times in a day? Or have you ever told your team that something's super critical and then forget about it the next day? Or have you ever lost a great employee and realized they weren't the problem, you were? Well, in today's episode, we're going to tackle each one of these and how you can prevent them from happening ever again.
Welcome to the Premium Mindset, the weekly podcast where homegrown entrepreneurs and business owners, Evan Ritchie and Cameron Bodden, share the good, the bad, and the ugly of modern entrepreneurship and reveal what really happens behind the scenes of their personal and professional lives. As owners of 2 of America's fastest growing and most disruptive companies, Coconut Cleaning and Green Mango Pest Control. Stay tuned for real stories, struggles, insight, and advice from real entrepreneurs in real time.
So today we want to talk about time management, and we're going to introduce the quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4. And those of you guys that have heard of them before, we're going to give you real life examples of what's going on in our personal lives, but talk about like why people get stuck in quadrant 1 and how they can never scale. So we're going to go through those today. But the biggest thing is that we feel like everyone's going to lose employees at some point. Everyone's going to get the shiny object syndrome. We want to focus on how to help your employees know exactly where to focus and how to word it in the right way.
Right.
So I want to share this time with
we talk about these topics prior to going on. And sometimes it's like we just look at the wall of like all the stories that we could tell, but this one I think is especially fitting.
Yeah, man. So we're talking about time management. We're talking about the quadrants. And truthfully, like how we start this podcast is that sometimes you just feel like your business is on fire all the time. Yep. And people are just running around like chickens with their head cut off. Yep. And I remember this time about 3 months before I sold Green Mango. We were at Tommy Mello's event in Florida, the Home Service Freedom event, and we're about to go into the VIP dinner. And I had to step aside because during this time we have James, our CFO, who's an amazing guy, but we had 2 or 3 people in the accounting team. And so we were trying to manage Coconut. When I say manage, like he was running all the finances for Coconut, all the finances for Green Mango, manage the accounting team, get our P&Ls. We had a deadline to him that he had to give them to us by the first or second Tuesday of the month. So closing the books, just a ton of pressure. And then on top of that, a lot of you guys haven't been through a sell of a company, but the quality of earnings portion of it, it's truly like a colonoscopy where they just go in and they ask every little thing that they can about business. Like, hey, why did you buy that table? Why did you classify that as an expense or a write-off? Like whatever it might be, like they go through it deep. And I remember James calling me, okay, I'm walking into Tommy Mello's event and he's freaking out because he doesn't know where to focus. Yep. And everything's what we're going to talk about quadrant 1. It's, like, where do you want me to focus? Where do you want me to go? And I remember we got into I started yelling at him in the corner of this restaurant, telling him to calm down, that everything's going to be okay. And when we talk about like these times in our life that are just chaotic, that was it for me. The pressure for James to get all the books done, the pressure to go through this quality of earnings, the pressure it takes from continuing to uphold our sales to, I had a lot of debt service to partners, to investors who helped me buy out my partner. Like all the pressure was there. And I'm lucky I didn't lose James. I'm lucky he didn't quit because that's what happens a lot of times to people.
Right. And you're James in your own business. Just think of like, the person that just shows up day in and day out and they are a scalpel in their department, because that's what James was for us. And when you look at this scenario, and I remember talking to you about it while we were there, it was like, dude, like nothing is as bad as it seems, but also at the same time, it's like we were there and being present for, because you were going through the exit as if it wasn't going to happen, because that's what you need to do, right? Mm-hmm. But we also were there for like, hey, how do we get Coconut to the next level? So it was important for us to be there. We were supporting Tommy. And so we're being present there. And then James has all this stuff going on. And I feel like what we are all guilty of as entrepreneurs at time is we take the people that show up for us daily, day in and day out, who are exceptionally talented at what they do. And sometimes we don't bring clarity to them, and we let them feel the same struggle as if they were the owner, and it's just not fair to them. Now, I find that A players, they do have that general sense of wanting to carry the weight, but James was a little bit more like as if this was his exit, and you can appreciate that, but we do this at times, and I feel like the topic when we were going through this was so fresh to me because I had my own little experience where you have James focusing on pretty much everything was extremely important, right? But there's also 12 other managers that you had that were assisting in the exit, and I just lost an A player, like the A player that came to Coconut, and mine was for the same reason, but it showed in a different way.
Yeah.
Because we talked to a lot of business owners in the 1% Club, that's Cameron's consulting group, and we also just talked to a lot of people in DMs, and I feel like the most constant is you're busy, you're going through a lot, but most of you have like that person or a couple people that show up for you day in and day out, and you let them take on the workload, you let them stay really busy, but we don't always provide what they need to feel supported. And where I kind of called you maybe 3 weeks ago, a month ago, and I said, hey, we're losing Mark. Like literally when he left my office, I was like, we're losing Mark. And to entrepreneurs out there that listen, Mark for me was like that guy that came here, took our sales standards and like doubled them. I was like, hey guys, everyone needs to have a $250 job average. Mark came in the group. It took like 6 months to get him there, but within 6 months, he had a $500 job average.
But also Mark's the guy that lifts up the culture.
Yep.
Like Mark, I don't think I've ever seen him without a smile on his face.
Yep.
And that's worth, however much. So not only is he increasing sales, but he's making everyone happy around him.
Yep. And so now fast forward 7 years and he quit. Now, my ego felt really good a month ago when he put in his 1 month notice because he said he's taken his new family, so they're about to have a newborn. And he said, we're moving to Texas and we have an opportunity with my father-in-law to grow and scale their business. So ego felt great. Oh, that's why you're leaving. And a week ago, I reached out to him and I said, hey man, I know that we're really close. We know each other very well. I want you to answer these 3 questions for an exit interview with me. And you're not talking to your friend, Evan. You're talking to the CEO of Coconut, Evan. And his last little tidbit to me was, I know you will get to where you want to go with all your goals, but you took way too long appeasing the wrong managers that just aren't the right fit. And so when I was presented the opportunity, I think the biggest factor on why I said yes was I just think you're farther out from getting to where you want to go because of spending too much time with managers and not enough time in the right managers doing the right thing. And that's why I'm leaving. And honestly, it kind of took me a second to like come to, and I'm like, I appreciate that, Mark. Obviously I'd love to hear names, but I appreciate the honest feedback. And I took that and I was like, and I look forward to us getting into the quadrants because how you show up and where you show up, it shows in so many different ways. And sometimes as owners, you get people that maybe you're a little bit more comfortable being around because maybe it's same interest, whatever it might be. But that was my realization yesterday, that my quadrants and how I show up for the business isn't just the tasks that I do, but it's also the people that I invest my time with. I just had an experience with franchisees because Cameron and I are still building a national company. And I was able to illustrate to them how important it is to stay on top of their leads, that before they pass it off to a family member, that they need to have the SOPs that we already have. So it's clear, the stats are out there. Franchising is an accelerator for you to not only start a business, but to be able to grow at a pace that just starting a regular company, you just can't do. So if you're interested in franchising with us at Coconut Cleaning and you want to jump into a system that's ready to go, click the link below and we'd love to talk to you soon.
Yeah. Well, we wanted to share these stories with you guys listening to this because it's two separate stories, but it's highlights on what we're talking about. Is that if everything's a priority, nothing is a priority. And when I was screaming at James for him to literally calm down, the next step was, let's just take one step at a time. Yeah. And then I gave him clear direction of where to focus. The thing with you is that if your priority is to run a successful business and be everyone's best friend and their trainer and, blah, 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 people are going to leave if they don't see them progressing. Yeah. It's okay to train people and give them a time to, improve of where they're weak. That's not what I'm saying is like you give them that time. Yeah. But also if they prove to you that after 6 months, a year, or however much time it is, if you keep holding on to them, which is what I hear you saying Mark had the problem with, like your priority of being their best friend, you can't do both. If people aren't progressing, you can't care more than they can. Yeah. And so this is where we see, entrepreneurs, they live in this urgency, like their life is urgent. And the greatest thing, when Coconut's in it, everyone's in it that's listening to this. If you're running a business, I'm in it as I build the Hype Farm 1% Club, is that because you're wanting to grow so fast and you're wanting to scale and make the money that you want to make, every new idea that you hear on a podcast, in a book, a friend gives you, social media, whatever it might be, you almost grab onto that like a life raft. Yeah. And you want to go implement it as fast as you can, because you feel like that's the thing that's going to make you money. And as entrepreneurs, we have a difficult time slowing down, understanding, hey, like, what is the most important thing? What can we focus on that's going to move the needle? And then watching it play out. Yep. Megan, who's with us now at Hype Farm, she's our CMO. It's been really cool as we focused on Q1 priorities. I had to literally list them out of, hey, what, like at the end of Q1, what will you be happy with? And so like that was a gut
That's
check.
What your question was for you?
That's you can only imagine.
Yeah.
I'm like, crap. So I got to like write it down and I quadruple checked it. Like, will I be happy if these things happen? And then, I get new ideas every single day, and she calls them caminisms now. Or do you call them caminisms? So it's like, hey, what caminisms do you have? Because it's like,
let's get those out of the way.
Let's get these out. That's what she said for the event. But I've had to check myself at the list and say, okay, we're either going to add to this list and I have to get my team's permission, or we're just not going to add it because this is more important. Yeah. But that's been highly effective for me. And I wish I would have known what we're talking about right now for James. And I wish I would have known what was happening with the quality of earnings to know, the stress that he was about to go through, because in reality, he should have only been focusing on that. And we should have found a CFO for the two different companies, but that's prioritizing exactly what's important.
Right. And I feel like at the root of why a lot of people get burnt out has actually less to do with workload and more to do with unclear priorities. And it starts with you. So I think that also highlights that the vision, or you have an idea of the vision, but having someone by your side that makes you get clear, concise goals about what that is and what that looks like. I think that's huge, because I feel like most everything that I fall short in, it's because I stated this really cool idea. Maybe a few people are like, that's really cool. Maybe even delegated a little bit, but it was still like unclear on the deadline, unclear on like why we're doing this, unclear on like, is this sustainable? Are we always going to do this? And so what I feel like has worked at Coconut, even though I have this Mark story, what has allowed the managers to stay on task is this question that we always ask ourselves. And it was an exercise that we did in Sedona. It was, what's our current constraint of growth? And it's not an easy question to answer, but one example that we're currently going through right now that, could help you guys out there is, if you were to sit your team down, and maybe it's just a tech, maybe it's like you, your brother, somebody, whatever, and there's not a big team, or if it is a big team, and you say, what is our current constraint of growth? You might get like, culture and things like that. That's fine. But when you look at at Coconut right now, and our leads have never been better. Our sales conversion has never been better. Our vans are finally fixed and ready to be operable, but we don't have the techs to work the vans, to work the leads. And so we're booking 7 to 9 days out because we don't have the techs for it. So when sitting down with the management team, the question that was answered to what is our current constraint of growth is technicians. And so while the managers have their own areas of responsibility, and we're going to talk about that on another episode, it's important to ask that question to your group, because what we discovered was that we're short technicians. So what every manager did is remind their staff that, hey, we give you $250 if you refer somebody that comes and works with us. But every manager took the marketing's post of hiring, and everyone put that on their social media. So that constraint of growth became everyone's micro responsibility to help in us getting technicians. And within 2 weeks, we got like 7 technicians. And so when you feel like you're running around, or there's a lot of people moving around with a lot of movement and there's no progression, sometimes it's because you're not working on the right thing that's going to move the needle, that's going to move the KPI that you need moved. And all you need to do is just channel it into the question of what is the thing that's preventing us from growing right now? And that can bring a lot of clarity in and of itself. And then if you do it right, set out the tasks and delegation, you'll start seeing the needle move faster.
Yeah, I love it, man. So here's like what we want to get into with this episode, and it's teaching about Covey's time management matrix. It's the 4 different things of quadrants. And the reason why this is so important is because if you feel like your team's always wondering like, hey, where do I focus? If they're feeling like you come every day with a different idea, if they never feel, established, like they're doing enough for you, and there's that frustration, like, and they're always asking for validation. How am I doing? How am I doing? It's probably because you don't have this worked out. So the first quadrant is quadrant 1. These are the things that are urgent. What is happening right now? And most people, business owners, in my opinion, are living in quadrant 1 and in quadrant 3. But quadrant 1 is like, hey, I just got in an accident. I need you, right? Or right now it was technicians.
Right.
We have all these leads. We're booking out 7 to 8 days, which is horrible.
Right.
We all need to go on quadrant 1. This is most urgent.
Yep.
2 is where you want to live. It's important, but not urgent. It's important because this is where the training happens. This is where the building happens and the systems are created. That's where you want to live as a business owner. Yep. Nothing's important. It just like, you're just working on it, right? Quadrant 3 is the deception that it's a quadrant 1 as if it has to happen. And this is where I've got caught in most of the time since the sell, is that because I'm open to investments, because I'm open to partnerships, because I'm trying to coach people, everyone's always asking like, hey, you got 10 minutes? Hey, can you meet up for lunch? Hey, do you want to go on this trip? Do you want to go golf? Whatever. And it's like, man, you can mistake being busy for being productive. And so I've had to, and I'm still working on it. I'm not great at this because I live most of it in quadrant 3 right now, is that, hey, I have my goals with family, with hobbies, with 1% club. Anything that takes away from that, I got to move it to quadrant 4, which is essentially, it's a cool idea. It's not going to move the needle for where I want to go this quarter, this month, or this year. But if I ever run out of ideas and I'm bored, like, here's my list of things that I can go work on. Yep. And the reason why I love this terminology of saying, hey, classifying things as quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4 is because what I found is that at Green Mango, this was introduced to me by my life coach, Mark Fournier, probably about year 9 or 10. And the reason why like it's so close to home to me is because people were walking around feeling like, am I doing enough for Cameron? Am I focusing on the right things? There's something new every single week. I would come up with it, right? And it was a breakthrough because what I found is that when you teach people this new language to speak, and it's truly like, hey, I want you to start labeling things as quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4, it puts away your ego as the owner to just hear people out. And the reason why I like that is because a lot of employees are scared to confront you as the CEO or as the owner and kind of challenge you with what you have. There's not a lot of people that'll stand up. And so what happens is like they just keep taking the pile of things that are, urgent that you're coming up with. And all of a sudden they have this mountain of items and they just collapse. Right. And so what this does is what I found is that when I would bring a new idea to the team, they would be like, hey, Cameron, is this a quadrant 1, 2, or 3? And I'd be like, oh, crap. Like they're speaking my language. And that wasn't them challenging me. That was just like, hey, is this more important? And it's what I'm talking about with Megan. When I look at my list of priorities for Q1, she can come to me and say, hey, is this more important than this task? Is this a Q1 or is this a Q3 or a quadrant 3 thing? And it's just a language that you can speak, and it allows you to stay focused on the main thing. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you're loving what we're talking about, but you're still confused of where to go and how to accomplish it, that's exactly why we started the 1% Club. We go through playbooks that teach you exactly how to do it and when to do it. And so I want you to click the link below that talks about the 1% Club and want you to join with us.
So what's because I feel like you had a podcast with Tommy that you're going to release when you release the book, and so not sharing too much, but I really like something that you've referenced, which is like that 15-minute exercise. So if there's an entrepreneur out there that's like, Cameron, like how can I identify not necessarily what quadrant, but it's like, what are some things that I could do immediately to kind of recalibrate the moment when I'm in a group of people and I feel like there's even excitement about something being talked about? How do I bring this up without like squashing the creativity of something new? And also like,
you're saying if like the other team brings you things that aren't?
Yeah. Cause like, I feel like
I think you could ask them the question back. Hey, Evan, this is a great idea. Is it a quadrant 1? Is this a quadrant 2? Like, where are we at with it? Here's our list of things. And it goes back to like the roadmap and what's important, and like, yeah, I mean, there's this mentoring group called Tiger 21, and you have to be worth a certain amount of money to be in it. It's this high level network. It's something that I am interested in. And this guy reached out to me as an introduction, said, hey, you need to take this call. You should be part of it. And at first I scheduled it. And then I had to tell Shannon, like, hey, let's cancel on this guy and just tell him like, hey, we're interested at some point, but not right now. And because normally, no, I am interested. Like it is something that fits the mold, but the past, and I say the past like 3 months ago, Cameron was just taking all the calls when people would be like, hey, can you jump on? Can you jump on? It's like, I was in quadrant 3 a lot of the times, and it's just being like mistaken being busy for being productive.
So here's what that looks like in this era is right now, you're doing podcasts and you're meeting a lot of new people. I am so on board at this point with networking, but
that's crazy to hear those words come out of your mouth.
Right? Here's what this could sound like for you guys that I am still actively doing. And that is when you know what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to do, it is extremely important that when you're meeting new people that you are more inclined to say no to maybe a podcast, or maybe I'm not even saying say no to the waste management, but here's what I am saying is that I feel like for the average person that, isn't doing stuff like that, what that looks like for us is the general like, hey bro, like I want to pick your brain. Let's go to lunch. Let's network. But it's generally self-served on other people's end. And so when you have a group of people, managers, leaders, and you have a spouse and you have kids, it's your responsibility to make sure that those people you are pouring into, because your people will see you whining and dining with like random people, going to lunch with whoever it might be. Or if you have like a vendor coming in that's like giving you stuff and you're not like reciprocating and you're not taking care of your people first, like you have to make sure that you're saying no to those things, because every no that you're saying no to something that wasn't a part of the original plans is a vote for the bigger yes that you originally planned with your team. And so if you're caught in the trap as an entrepreneur saying that like, oh, I'm here to save the day, or you walk in and people are like, oh, you're here, that's not a good thing. It's not. It might feel good for a second. And there should always be some level of where you are a resource to your people. But if you are being the firefighter, if you're being the hero, I promise you want to get above the business. You want to prioritize and execute the things that are most important to your short and long-term goals, and then make sure that everyone who's a part of it feels like they're a part of it. They have the why, the vision, and then everything outside of it is just noise and chatter, and you avoid it like the plague.
So one of the things I was talking to today with my one-on-one client is because we were talking about quadrants, and he actually was aware of the quadrants and says, I do it on a weekly basis. And I said, well, does your team know the language? Like, have you taught your team that? And he's like, no. And so if you're listening to this podcast, one, I'd go study, Covey's quadrants even further. But two, I'd go train your people on it, because again, it's this new vocabulary that you'll have within your organization that you can utilize of what's important. Because when you're clear on what the task is, like, everyone feels important, everyone feels like they're rowing in the right direction, and they're focusing on what matters.
Yep. And I would say, back to the ego thing, I think what becomes difficult when you grow with a team that doesn't quit and they stick around, and let's say you hang out outside of work, it does, I'm speaking from, my own experience, it does become a little bit more difficult to get people refocused when they're kind of falling short. And I feel like having that standardization of universal language allows you to use a framework with them and help them walk through their own problems, rather than like you be the soundboard of like what gets voted yes or no, but you elevate your people to say, hey, I think this is a good idea. That matrix that we go through, where do you think this falls? And then you'll see that light bulb clicking for them, and they're like, I don't even know if it's urgent. Maybe, what? It's probably not a good idea. It's like, okay, cool. I had this happen yesterday with a software guy pitched his software to me, and then after he's like, hey man, like, I'd love to come by, take you guys out, do this, and it was just as very clear, because like my guy in the background was like, yeah, let's do this. I'm like, hey man, I appreciate it. I'll just take the information right now, but like, if we choose to move forward with you guys, maybe we could do that later, but right now we're just really busy, because it was like taking us somewhere nice. Yeah. And I'm like, no, like, not right now. So getting your people to a universal language where there's uniformity across the board on what you're saying and how to communicate elevates not only yourself and your thinking, but also your leaders as they make their own decisions.
I was just thinking, like, how many times have you talked to an entrepreneur and you're like, hey, how's your day going? They're like, just putting out fires. Like, just
all the time.
Like their life is putting out fires. And so it's just a cool gut check. If you look back on your calendar, you look at your day today as you're listening to this, how many fires are you putting out?
Yep.
Like, that's not the goal as an entrepreneur. Your goal isn't to put out fires. Your goal is to prevent them.
Yep.
And how do you prevent them? It's by training. It's by building the systems, the processes, to have things in place so that when the fires come up, it's not having to pull you out of your day-to-day of working on the business. And so, look, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, man, like, I wonder which quadrant I live on, go back to last week, look at your day, see where you're at, teach your team how to speak this language, and encourage them. And then the last thing that I would say is that when they do bring you feedback of saying, hey, is this a quadrant 1, 2, or 3, don't get defensive. Like, make it an open space for them to question you. Hey, is this really more important than what we decided was most important last week? And just be open to that feedback.
There's a quote that I heard that character is not intended to be created in times of trial. That's when it's intended to be used. And I feel like when we're doing these podcasts and we go back to the name Premium Mindset, all these little training principles allow you to get above the business, so that when in times of trial and fire, people look to you and they're like, man, like, how do you make those decisions? And pairing that with like another little quote that I've heard of, like, hey, people say, what if I train my people and they leave? It's actually the inverse that's the problem, is that what if you don't train them and they stay? And so as a leader, it's your responsibility, especially in this market that we're going into. I don't know if, like, you obviously you follow Pace, you're friends with Pace, but like, have you seen his content the last couple of days? Like, you're in trouble, your business is going to go under. And there's a part of me where it's like, I want to reject it, but then I'm like, well, what's he saying? And he's speaking to the average entrepreneur that's like, I'm just going to keep showing up and doing my same little service that I always do. Little principles like this, where you start to learn it and you start to show up more precise and calculated in what you do. And then you share it with your team members and you encourage them to follow through with it. Your business is naturally going to be elevated and more protected. And I would say that you're going to prevent fires, and you're going to have a team of people that know how to mitigate rather than just being that guy that shows up as the hero. And so if you're thinking we're talking about a quadrant, what we're talking about is an element to having a premium mindset as a leader. And it's elevating yourself above the business, knowing what's most important, having the vision, having the goal set, and then having your day-to-day set so that everything that comes up along the way, you know exactly what to do. And then the next step is getting your people on the same level. And when they're there, that's where you start feeling like you're in that little flow of business where we set a goal, we hit it, we're setting another goal, we're hitting it. And if you're stuck in your business, it's probably because you're not elevating it and you're just paddling in water where you really could just stand up if you just really focused on it. And that's where these principles really come to aid you, is in the day-to-day where you feel overwhelmed. You'll actually be able to get above it and get more conscientious on where you're spending your time. And I feel like anytime the business is overwhelming to me, it's because I'm not doing stuff like this.